Content warnings. This video discusses the morality of murder at length and briefly mentions rape. In this video, I will be looking at a PragerU video featuring Dennis Prager entitled, "If There Is No God, Murder Isn't Wrong," and try to debunk it. Full disclosure, I may not show every clip from the original video or in the exact order they appear in the video. I'm doing this to save time and help this video flow better. I don't want to be known for arguing in bad faith, so if you think I have made a mistake or misrepresented PragerU's argument, then please leave a comment down below. I highly recommend watching PragerU's video before watching this one, and a link to the original video is on the top of the description. Now on to the PragerU video.
Do you believe that good and evil exist?
I believe that good and evil exist as social constructs.
The answer to this question separates Judeo-Christian values from secular values. Let me offer the clearest possible example: murder. Is murder wrong? Is it evil?
There are situations where I think you could morally justify killing someone, but in general, yes, I would agree that murder is wrong and evil.
Nearly everyone would answer yes, but now I will pose a much harder question. How do you know?
Well, I don't know. I think that the concepts of right and wrong are social constructs, and social constructs only exist because humans agree they exist. Therefore, the concepts of right and wrong don't exist outside of human thought, and actions can't be objectively shown to be right or wrong. So I think that murder is wrong, but I don't objectively know murder is wrong.
If I asked you how you know that the Earth is round, you would show me photographs from outer space or offer me measurable data. But what photographs could you show? What measurements could you provide that prove that murder or rape or theft is wrong? The fact is, you can't. There are scientific facts, but without God, there are no moral facts. In a secular world, there can only be opinions about morality. They may be personal opinions or society's opinions, but only opinions.
So Dennis just admitted it is impossible to prove that objective morality exists. It is a really weird choice to admit almost immediately that your position is unprovable and then continue insisting that you are correct. Now, I do agree that without some sort of higher being, there are no moral facts. Since we humans can't objectively prove whether something is moral or immoral, if objective moral facts do exist, then they must come from a higher level of reality. However, this does not mean that a higher being or objective morality actually exists, and as Dennis just admitted, there is no objective data that can prove that these things exist.
Every atheist philosopher I have read or debated on this subject has acknowledged that if there is no God, there is no objective morality.
I think that most of those atheist philosophers would also say it is fine if objective morality doesn't exist. This line is phrased like Dennis has won some big argument against atheists, but that just isn't the case.
Judeo-Christian values are predicated on the existence of a God of morality. In other words, only if there is a God who says murder is murder wrong. Otherwise, all morality is opinion.
It is at this point in the video that Dennis tries to start arguing that Judeo-Christian values are the correct objective values. Let's assume for the sake of argument that objective morality does exist. There are many, many groups and subdivisions within Christianity and Judaism, so which group has the correct interpretation of objective morality? The fact that there even can be different interpretations means that there is not a correct objective interpretation, at least not ones humans can prove, assuming there is objective morality, which means that these interpretations are just the opinions of these groups. Even assuming that all of Christianity or Judaism thinks the same, what about other religions? What makes your God the correct God? If I asked you how you know the Earth is round, you would show me photographs from outer space or offer me measurable data. But what photographs could you show? What measurements could you provide that prove that not only that God exists, but that that God is your God? The fact is, you can't.
Now, let me make two things clear. First, this doesn't mean that if you don't believe in God, you can't be a good person. There are plenty of kind and moral individuals who don't believe in God and Judeo-Christian values. But the existence of these good people has nothing to do with the question of whether good and evil really exist if there is no God.
So Dennis has just decided that it is a given that objective morality exists and that it comes from his God. To repeat my last point again, even assuming that objective morality exists, which Dennis has made no arguments to prove and actually admitted it was impossible to prove, why does it come from your God?
Second, There have been plenty of people who believed in God who were not good people. Indeed, more than a few have been evil and have even committed evil in God's name.
Okay, but if people that don't believe in objective morality can do good and people that do believe can do bad, then why does it even matter? If the supposed existence of objective morality doesn't change the way that people behave, then why do you keep insisting that it exists? Dennis has not only admitted that his position is impossible to prove, but that it is also irrelevant.
Without God, we therefore end up with what is known as moral relativism, meaning that morality is not absolute, but only relative to the individual or to the society.
Isn't moral relativism how we should want morality to work, though? Shouldn't we want our values to actually be defendable? If someone's only justification for their moral claims is that their God told them it was right, then shouldn't we view those claims as weak compared to claims backed with some logic and reason?
Now, many will argue that you don't need moral absolutes. People won't murder because they don't want to be murdered. But that argument is just wishful thinking. Hitler, Stalin, and Mao didn't want to be murdered, but that hardly stopped them from murdering about 100 million people. It is not a coincidence that the rejection of Judeo-Christian values in the Western world by Nazism and communism led to the murder of all these innocent people.
This is where Dennis really starts to go off the rails. Firstly, I think it's funny how this graphic implies that you are some far-out hippie if you don't want to get murdered. Secondly, I think that the real reason most people don't commit murder is that they think it is immoral. The way this statement is phrased makes it sound like if people were immune to murder, then they would go on killing sprees. I don't think most people think this way, and I really, really hope Dennis doesn't think this way. Now, don't get me wrong. I absolutely despise the values that led to the actions of genocidal dictators. However, they have just as much evidence to prove that their actions are objectively moral as Dennis does to prove that his actions are objectively moral. That is to say, none. These dictators and others that commit evil acts can just as easily claim that their actions are objectively moral with no evidence. If we actually have to defend our moral claims, then they are much stronger. Otherwise, if we just choose to believe in certain morals because God or some other higher power told me to, then we can morally justify horrible acts with only dogmatic reasoning.
It is also not a coincidence that the first societies in the world to abolish slavery, an institution that existed in every known society in human history, were Western societies rooted in Judeo-Christian values. And so were the first societies to affirm universal human rights, to emancipate women, and to proclaim the value of liberty.
What Dennis says here contradicts his previous statements. He identifies the people that freed slaves and emancipated women as people with Judeo-Christian values. However, there wasn't some evil set of values that existed in a vacuum, and then Judeo-Christian values appeared from nowhere and vanquished them. Those people with Judeo-Christian values also created societies that had slavery and restrictions on women. However, now many people with Judeo-Christian values would say that those things are bad. It's almost as if the values of these Judeo-Christian societies changed over time, meaning that their morality is not absolute and is actually a social construct.
Today, the rejection of Judeo-Christian values and moral absolutes has led to a world of moral confusion. In the New York Times in March 2015, a professor of philosophy confirmed this. He wrote, "What would you say if you found out that our public schools were teaching children that it is not true that it's wrong to kill people for fun? Would you be surprised? I was."
I could do a whole separate video debunking the points in the article, but for now I will just stick to the quote Dennis uses. Firstly, the most important thing to understand is that public schools are not teaching kids that it is right to kill people for fun. Everyone should understand this, but the quote kind of implies this is not the case. What the schools are actually doing is teaching that it is not objectively wrong to kill people for fun. You can make very good arguments as to why murder is wrong, but since morality is a social construct, it is impossible to objectively prove murder is wrong. Now, I do think it is good to tell kids that murder is wrong, but we should also be able to use reasoning to explain to them why that is the case.
So then, whatever you believe about God or religion, here is a fact. Without a God who is the source of morality, morality is just a matter of opinion. So, if you want a good world, the death of Judeo-Christian values should frighten you. I'm Dennis Prager.
As I have stated throughout the video, I agree that without a higher power, morality is opinion. What I disagree with is the idea that objective morality actually exists and that it comes from Judeo-Christian values. Even if we knew with 100% certainty that objective morality existed, which we don't, we would know that some sort of higher being existed, but we wouldn't know anything about that higher being, or even what the morals it created actually were. So in this video, Dennis Prager appears to be trying to argue the existence of objective morality and by extension, God. If you actually watch the video, he completely fails to do either of these things though. Remember at the beginning of the video when he said this.
If I asked you how you know that the Earth is round, you would show me photographs from outer space or offer me measurable data. But what photographs could you show? What measurements could you provide that prove that murder or rape or theft is wrong? The fact is, you can't.
You're right, Dennis. I can't, and neither can you. His argument can essentially be boiled down to, for objective morality to exist, a higher being must exist. Wouldn't it be nice if objective morality existed? Therefore, a higher being and objective morality exist. Also, the higher being that does in fact exist is the Judeo-Christian God. But if Dennis isn't arguing for the existence of objective morality or God, then why did he make this video? I think there are two main reasons. The first reason is to comfort people with Judeo-Christian values. The video is saying, they're there, you don't have to worry, your beliefs are objectively right and you don't have to justify them. But what is the second reason? Well, I think these two clips demonstrate it pretty well.
This doesn't mean that if you don't believe in God, you can't be a good person. There are plenty of kind and moral individuals who don't believe in God and Judeo-Christian values. Without a God who is the source of morality, morality is just a matter of opinion. So, if you want a good world, the death of Judeo-Christian values should frighten you.
Dennis is basically saying, you don't have to believe in our God or our values, but you do have to agree with what we say and follow our rules, otherwise you are disagreeing with God. He can use this in arguments to trick people that can't spot the faulty logic into agreeing with him. So what have we learned today? There are three main things that I hope you take away from this video. Number 1, morality is a social construct. Morality only exists because humans think about it. Morality does not exist outside of human thought. Number 2, it is impossible to prove that objective morality exists. Even Dennis admitted this at the beginning of the video. There is no objective way to prove whether something is moral or immoral. However, this does not mean that you can just do whatever you want. You should still have morals, and number 3, you should be able to justify your moral claims. You can't objectively show your moral claims to be correct, but you can make arguments that justify them. And if you can't, then you are potentially allowing yourself to commit horrible acts with the only reasoning behind them being that a higher being told me to. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like and comment down below to let me know. If you like PragerU, make sure to leave a like on this video. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.